Greetings fellow mammals. Before we all overdose on Grandma's glorious Christmas cooking, I wanted to look at one more weapon that makes me equally jolly. The AK4D, an assault rifle that is primarily equipped for mid-range, but because of its punchy damage model and rather easygoing recoil also has no issues extending that rewarding performance towards both ends of the spectrum if the user handles it right. But where does that adaptability originate from? Let's take a look at the base stats. The damage model starts off at 33.4 up to 21 meters, then dropping to 25 up to 75 meters and then down to 20 beyond that. The corresponding bullet to kill graph goes from 3 to 4 up to 5. With a rather chill fire rate of 514 rounds per minute, the resulting time to kill graph isn't that amazing, but it certainly isn't bad either. 233 milliseconds, 350 milliseconds and then 467. Not the most impressive numbers, but the lack of recoil and the acceptable base spread make it quite effective even at longer ranges. And because of both of those factors you also simply miss less, which might entice you to think about going for headshots. So why don't we take a look at what those can do for you. First off, the regular ones with a 1.34x multiplier. Let's get the body shot line on the chart too for reference, and now I'll add the single headshot line on top of that. As you can see, just like last time, a single headshot changes absolutely nothing. 2 headshots are equally unrewarding, but when we land 3 of them, we finally see some improvements. The BTK has now dropped by 1 in the second and third range, and from my point of view, and keeping the average player in mind, this is a completely fruitless endeavor. But maybe hollow point ammo can move this closer to an achievable level. 1 headshot with the pricey ammo and the 1.5x multiplier still does nothing at all, but with 2 we can observe a full drop across all steps. That means that in the first range you could potentially drop someone with 2 headshots, which would mean they die in 117 milliseconds. That is fast. And believe me, when it happens, it feels really nasty. Unfortunately, adding 1 more headshot on top of the 2 comes with no further bonuses. So with hollow point ammo we get a full drop picture, not just second and third range, and we also get it with 2 headshots instead of 3. That is a considerable improvement, but even with the somewhat easygoing recoil, personally I'm still not convinced. Slow firing weapons have an innate disadvantage for landing multiple headshots at a time, and having to land at least 2 to get any reduction at all, while needing to spend 15 points for that to even work in the first place, which then also means you will be missing those 15 points for other parts of your build, is, let's just say, not ideal. I don't think that this is a viable road to go down for most players. I was talking about this with Enders the other day, and he told me that he would feel somewhat handicapped if he wasn't using hollow point. And I get why he would say that, but I certainly am not on his skill level, and I also don't really make these videos for players like him. I want to help those of you that are usually in the middle of the scoreboard and not at the top already. So all I'm trying to say is, when you happen to land those 2 headshots up close, it will feel incredible. But for my skill range, more often than not, that's down to luck and not intent. And at that point I'd rather spend those 15 credits on something else. And that brings me to my personal loadout recommendations. Take it away, Life Sorrow. Thank you, Scripted Sorrow. So before I go over my 2 actual recommendations and the 2 honorable mentions, I want to start off with the basic naked gun again. And this one, with the iron sights of course, looks like this. And just let me do the recoil without controlling it. It's there, but I would say it's pretty easy to control even at this stage. Of course 20 rounds is a bit of a pain, lots of reloading, but at least in every other regard this weapon feels pretty good. So, and also, yeah, these iron sights are definitely usable. Pretty clean. You can see it on this target here on the left. It somewhat covers that one. That's downside. I wish this thick thing in the front, in the back, I guess, would be a bit lower or smaller, but I guess it's still workable. So let's start off with my first build. And this directly addresses the ammo issue, because we do have a 30 round option, which is insanely expensive with 40 points. So, well, actually 35, yeah, you get it, but okay, 35 points already gone. The next thing is we do want a suppressor, so that's at least 20. Personally, I just prefer the 25 one because of the innate recoil reduction. And I do use the heavy extended barrel because this one basically costs nothing and you get the accuracy buff from the heavy barrel plus the velocity increase of the extended barrel all in one for the same cost. I'm not sure if this is intentionally or if they fucked this up, but it is what it is. So this is easily the best option here. And at that point I want my red dot, and then we only have 10 points left, so I put those into the green laser. And this build obviously has no grip, so we are working with almost the base recoil I just showed you on the naked gun, but don't forget the suppressor does help with it quite a lot, at least from a feeling standpoint. Shut up. I would say this is pretty great already, but you do notice, especially on the farther away targets, the accuracy can be... Well, that was just my shitty aim, but the accuracy can be kind of lacking at times. Especially at that fourth target there. But apart from that, we now have a 30 round magazine with this insane damage model, and it feels like you can kill like, I don't know, 6 people without reloading. That's pretty nuts. And the recoil is actually still quite easy going, even without having any grips at all. So this is my first build, going for the full ammo option. I would say this is pretty much because also of the lacking accuracy, more for closer ranges, smaller maps, maybe also smaller modes. But yeah, it works. You can make it work at long range by simply tap firing or microbursting, but there is one better setup for that kind of stuff, and that's the second one. And in here, obviously we don't need to spend 35 points on the ammo, so we have a lot more stuff to spend. I'm still going with the heavy extended barrel, I'm still going with the 25 suppressor, and I still want my red dot. And the rest of the points we now have free because of the smaller magazine. I spent on the alloy vertical because this grip has no downsides at all and helps with the recoil at least a little. And on the blue laser for exactly the lack of accuracy I was talking about just a second ago. This can help with that quite a lot. And then I have 5 points left and I put those in the faster magazine. And this is, which I would argue, the best setup for this weapon, with some wiggle room for personal adjustments, which I will go over now. Well, I talked about the ammo option, we can't go higher than 20, that's unfortunate. We do, however, have some wiggle room in other regards. Let's say, for example, you don't want to use the laser, and you want to try hollow point. Well, get rid of it, use hollow point, and now you even have 5 points left, and you could put those in the slim angled grip, which also has no downsides, and you get the faster ADS speed. So, if you want to give hollow point a try, this works. Another option, if you don't want to try hollow point, but you still want, let me go back to the previous setup, blue laser. If your only issue with this setup is the 300 millisecond ADS time, and you do want the 25 point grip, you now would have to save 5 points somewhere else. You can't save them here, you can't save them here. You could save them on the suppressor going down to the 20 point one, you could save them by going to the iron sights, or you could save them by going to the regular magazine, which is what I would recommend, because this suppressor here is very, very essential for the feeling. It's hard to convey, but it does help quite a lot with the recoil and how it behaves, even with the grip at this point. This is, honestly, this is one of my favorite attachments in the entire game. So personally, I would never want to get rid of that one, at least if I don't have to. And saving 5 points on the sight is also not quite my thing. I do like the iron sights on this weapon, but I just prefer having a red dot, and at this point, going from a fast magazine with 2.2 roughly second reload timing to a 2. Roughly 5 reload timing. I mean, yes, you do feel it, but this is a 20 round magazine weapon anyway, so your reload timing has to be good already. So I would argue losing 0.3 seconds on the reload isn't really that big of an issue, and instead we can now go for the slim angled grip, have the faster ADS speed, and now this can even be used rather aggressively up close. And that was obviously the empty reload, so that takes even longer, but the not empty reload is still manageable. You do notice it, as I said, but it's not the end of the world. Now to the, let's say, gimmick setups. The first one is with Hipfire. Obviously for that you need the 30 point suppressor that doesn't have any any hipfire reduction. The CQB one for 30 points, quite expensive. The short barrel for better hipfire, the flashlight for better hipfire, the 20 point green laser for better hipfire. And at that point I also went with the faster magazine, because I can. And I went with the penetration ammo, which is a new take on this kind of thing, because I was considering, well, you don't really care about recoil anyway when you're hip firing, and there might be a very rare situation where you do penetrate multiple targets in hip fire, and then it helps, I guess. It costs the same as the basic ammo anyway, so who cares. And the last 5 points I put into my red dot, because even with this build, I mean, look at that hipfire. That's pretty nuts. And if you go into crouch, let me quickly reload. That's no issue. That's no issue. That's reaching. And yeah, that's not realistic. But that's, what is that? 35 meters? Well, at least the 20 meter one is really consistent. So this is pretty much across streets, inside buildings. And then for the targets at range, you could still aim. And because of the, well, you really saw the accuracy issues there. But because of the low recoil, you can still make this work even in ADS. So yeah, that's the Hipfire build. Not my favorite, but it exists. Let's put it that way. And then the fourth loadout I have for you is the, let's call it the DMR build. Also not something I would honestly recommend, but you can do it. And what I go for here is basically single fire. So you use the match trigger for even better single fire. You can afford the alloy vertical grip, still going with the heavy extended barrel. And instead of the 25 point suppressor, I go with the lightened one for 30 points, because that gets rid of the weapon sway, and we can afford it. And then we still have 5 points left for the fast magazine, and then you use a scope with a higher magnification, obviously. And with this, if I now switch into single fire mode, you can, yeah, at that point it's basically a DMR. I'm honestly not sure why anyone would do this, but it just goes to show that you can, I guess. So whoever cares for this kind of stuff, have fun. And yeah, that's it. So we had the Hipfire build, the DMR build right now, I would call this the main build, which you can go kind of aggressive with, and then the magazine build, I guess. And now, back to my script itself. Thank you, Life Sorrow. I think we are now ready to rank this thing. As you saw, even though the G3 is pretty limited when it comes to magazine sizes, it does have quite an astounding amount of disposable income, so to say. If you aren't relying on thermals, there's actually quite a lot of points to spend on whatever direction you want to take this gun in. That's a level of freedom not every weapon can provide, and on top of that customizability, the base performance is just really satisfying. You could use this weapon with no attachments at all and it would still feel okay. That is not something I can say about a lot of the other options in this game. And maybe it's personal bias, but I just like the G3. It does what it's supposed to, and if you slightly lower your level of aggressive play to what this weapon can offer, it will feel great in pretty much every situation. Yes, there are better weapons for close range, there are better weapons for long range, and there are faster killing weapons overall. Sure, but this beauty just sits in the middle of all of that, and it doesn't really concern itself with all those other things. It is simply content. And with those satisfying reload animations, great sound, good looks and reliable performance, it then makes me a very content user of it. And for that reason, the AK4D will get a satisfactory A-. And yes, I am quite strict with my tier list nowadays compared to 2042. So let me add some notes for the parents on what would be needed to improve upon this grade. Simply adding the light barrel as well as a 25 round magazine option, both a basic and a fast version of course, would lift the AK4D to a clean A+. I don't think it's worthy of S tier, at least not with my definition of that, but it is certainly a very well-rounded, reliable tool for a vast array of jobs. A clear recommendation from my end if you haven't given it a proper shot yet. And that's it for today. Subscribe if you don't want to miss the next weapon guide, and please give me some feedback on whether the live commentary section has improved or not. Thank you for your time, Merry Christmas, and I will see you on a battlefield. Zorro, out.